Welcome back to Legends May Live, where we explore the mysterious, the unexplained, and the downright eerie. I'm Drew, and today I'm actually going to share my own story. I do want to preface this by saying that I'm a Christian, by faith and by reasoning. What I mean is, I've examined my beliefs, and while some of the smaller aspects change with new evidence, the core just has far too compelling of evidence to deny. That may sound crazy to some, but listen to other stories, testimonies, and then look into apologetics. The evidence is abundant. My point in saying all that is that my story doesn't exactly fit into the widely accepted among Christians. And while I don't understand it, and I don't know what I think of it for sure, I do think it's worth sharing. For the longest time, I didn't think much of them. They were just sort of there, like random childhood recollections, like, yeah, I went to the park last week, but it's not something I consciously recall and dwell on. But as I got older, I started realizing something disturbing. These weren't memories of things that had happened. They were things that literally couldn't have happened. I was around 10 years old when I understood what these memories, that they weren't possibly from my life. They were from the late 1950s and stretched into the 1970s, decades before I was even born. I remember being an adult in my late 20s to maybe 30. I remembered having two kids, a boy and a girl. I remembered moments that felt so real. One memory in particular, I was driving home from the Sears Tower with the kids in the back seat. They'd been Christmas shopping for their mother, and they got her a fashion jewelry set. It was in a red velvet box. Um, well, they picked it out, and I paid for it. It was nighttime, and the city and the headlights all around were lit up like it looked like stars on the horizon. Um, but that couldn't have happened because, as I was remembering it, um, I was 10, 11, and that memory had always been there. So um, so there were more vivid memories like that, but then there were those feelings like almost a certainty that in this fictional world in my head, I didn't live past 30, and that I didn't die of natural causes. In fact, I had the sense that I was killed by the mob. I know it sounds ridiculous. There I am, a 10-year-old kid who's never been outside of rural Alabama with these made up memories of living in Chicago, having a wife and kids, and being taken out by mobsters. Like I said, even to this day, I've never been to Chicago. I've never even set foot in Illinois. But somehow that memory, if that's what it was, stuck with me my whole life. And crazy as it sounds, it shaped how I lived. I became hyper aware of my surroundings, always cautious. I preferred to sleep with my back to the wall, in public. I would sit in corners where I could see the whole room. I planned exits in my head, mapped out fights before they ever happened. I started martial arts young and got serious about working out by the time I was 12. It was just instinctive, like I was preparing for something I didn't understand. I had this sense of a need to protect myself and my family. So fast forward to adulthood, and it's around 2018, 2019. I had some downtime at work and randomly decided to explore Chicago on Google Maps. I kind of wanted to see if my memories were actually of Chicago like I'd always felt. So I started clicking around, um, found a dock labeled Cargo Bay Loading, and just without thinking, I said out loud, "That's not a cargo station. That's where the fairgrounds are." I zoomed into the street view, and sure enough, it was mislabeled. So I, I knew what it was supposed to be, even though I'd never been there, at least not outside of my so called memories. And to be honest, that shook me a little, but I kept going. So I started um, kind of driving through the city on street view, just following whatever felt right. And eventually I found this place that gave me this strong sense of home. But when I looked closer, there was really nothing there. It was just some commercial buildings. It was hard to even tell what they were. So I just kept going. And then I found a small cluster of brick buildings and immediately thought, I used to work there. That sounds so crazy to say out loud. But anyway, then I found a train station. And it's a place that I'd always remembered spending a lot of time with friends. It was an old train yard where dozens of trains would be parked at any time. It was the kind of spot where you could go deep in and no one would see you. Um, just a good place for a teenager in the 60s to hang out. So it was getting really weird at this point, but it also really piqued my curiosity. So I started digging into murders in Chicago uh, in the 1970s specifically. I looked through dozens of books, probably 100 or more newspapers. I was looking for someone that felt like me. I really didn't expect to find anybody and say, aha, that was me. But at the same time, I wondered if it might happen. So several hours spent over a few days. I didn't find anything that stood out to me as me. Um, so I was just about ready to write myself off as crazy when I stumbled across a picture of a lesser known victim. And as soon as I saw him, I was just blown away. He looked like he could have been my brother or maybe even a twin. His name was Danny Seifert. So he was an entrepreneur like myself, oddly enough. He was killed by the Chicago mob on September 27th, 1974, and he was only 29 years old when he died. So checking some boxes there already. So how did he die? Well, he was a key witness against the Chicago mob, and they weren't too happy about that. Um, as he was coming into work, he had just gotten through the door when two masked men jumped him and from the inside and pistol whipped him. He was able to fight him off well enough to escape out the back, but they had other guys posted out there, and the too long didn't read version of it is that they shot him in the knee from behind, and then another one came up and shot him in the head, executioner style, just outside of his shop. So, where was his business? I got to digging on that. I was so curious, and it turns out that was the same place I found on Google Maps and said I used to work there. So at this point, I'm just sitting there staring at my screen, totally rattled. There really wasn't any more information that I could find at the time, though. I mean, I tried desperately to dig up anything more, um, and that was basically it. That was all I could find. Fast forward about 2 years or so. Not exactly sure on the timeline, but I decided to look into it again, and now there's a lot more info out there this time. So, in fact, there was a documentary in the works. So, as I looked for any piece of information on Danny, it just felt like I was trying to put myself back together. What I found was that he had three kids, not two like I had remembered, but my memories were never 100% of the picture. I just had glimpses of the life. So, what I did remember was, like I said before, boy and a girl, my kids, in the back of the car coming back from the Sears Tower after Christmas shopping. Um, so, if that memory was real, knowing what I know now about the ages of Danny's kids, the youngest would have still been at home with the mom, which fit. So finally, I found his home address, and guess what? It was the exact same place I'd navigated to on Google Maps, only to find commercial buildings. It had been torn down sometime between 1974 and 2019. I never really could find much info on that. So, what now? I don't know if I believe in reincarnation. I don't know if I was Denny Seifert or if I'm just crazy, but I remember things that I shouldn't. and more than I could put into this podcast. But part of me wants to reach out to the family to see if any of this makes sense, but I can't do that to them. I mean, I can't put them through that. So I'm here sharing my story because I don't know what to do with it. If you've ever experienced something like this, or if you have any theories, I'd love to hear them. Because honestly, I still don't know what to believe. You can let me know your thoughts on Reddit, Facebook, or legendsmaylive.com. And if you've got a story of your own, we'd love to hear it and may make it onto the show. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who loves a good eerie tale. Until next time, keep your eyes open, keep a lookout, because it turns out legends may live.